Think of time like something valuable, like your money or seed corn. Just as you wouldn't let someone waste your money or take your seeds, you shouldn't let anyone waste your time. Time is precious, and it's important to protect it just like you would protect your capital. So when should you start your day? The answer is simple. Don't start your day until you've finished it in your mind. Take some time to plan out your day thoughtfully. Sure, you'll need to be flexible for unexpected events and tasks that might pop up, but once you've crafted a solid plan, it's time to jump, start your day into action. You'll be surprised at how much more effective and productive your time becomes when you've got a clear plan. So remember, don't start your day until you've finished it. Now, let's take this a step further. Don't start your week until you've got it all sorted out. Planning an entire week can be challenging, but the payoff is worth it. Just like with your day, having a solid plan for your week can make a huge difference in what you accomplish. Next, don't start your month until you have it finished in your mind. Think about where you need to go, the people you need to meet, and the goals you want to achieve. Whether it's boosting productivity, increasing sales, attracting customers, or fostering development, having a clear plan for the next 30 days will set you on the right path. But here's an even bigger point to consider. Don't start the year until you've laid out your plans in detail. Now, you might not be able to plan every single minute, but make sure you've got a clear overview of what you want to accomplish throughout the year. Take the time to set your goals and aspirations and get everything ready before January 1st rolls around. Now, let's be realistic. Things don't always go as planned. You might start the year with a great plan, but by January 15th, you could feel frustrated because things aren't working out as you hope. But here's the good news. You can always start over. Don't be afraid to revise your plans and keep moving forward. Sometimes you might even make incredible progress in the first 90 days of the year. You might find that you've accomplished double or triple what you expected. I've had this happen to me before. I started the year with certain goals in mind, and by the end of the third month, I was feeling really positive because I'd made so much progress. So remember, time is your most valuable asset. Protect it, plan it, and use it wisely. Whether it's your day, your week, your month, or your year, take the time to finish it in your mind before you start it in action. This is how you set yourself up for success. One day, 1 week, 1 month, and 1 year at a time. You know, life has a way of throwing curveballs at us, and sometimes we have to adjust our plans. That's what happened to me this year. So many unexpected things came up that I had to rethink my entire plan for the year. But you know what's interesting? Once I started planning again, I noticed how much better things turned out. It's almost like planning creates this space for good things to happen. Now, let me share something Bill Bailey once said about time. He had a way of putting life into perspective that really makes you think. He said, life is a collection of experiences, their frequency, and their intensity. Life is not just the passing of time. Life is not just watching the clock tick away. Life isn't just about marking time on a calendar. It's about how much we're living, how deeply we're feeling, and how often those moments happen. So if you think about it, living a rich life means embracing each moment with everything you've got. I remember my father, who lived to be 93 years old. Now, that's a long time by any measure, but even at 93, it felt too short. You see, no matter how many years you get, when it comes to the people you love, it never feels like enough. Now, if you go back to ancient times, like those stories from the Old Testament, people used to live a lot longer. Some even 500, 600, 700 or more years. Imagine that. If I could ask them, I'd say, hey, how did we get the short end of the stick here? It's a fun question to ponder, don't you think? Just think about it. Having 700, 800, or 900 years to watch your family grow and flourish, generation after generation. Of course, you'd have to be in good health to make it that far. But whether our time here is long or short, what really matters is what we do with it. The key is to fill our lives with meaningful, intense experiences that make us feel alive. Now, let me give you some advice on time management. Here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes you need to forget about managing time altogether. Don't get too caught up in trying to control every minute of your day. Sometimes it's better to let go of the stress of managing time and just focus on living your life fully. If you're feeling overwhelmed by trying to control every minute of your day, remember that you don't have to carry that burden. You have the power to let go of that pressure. You don't need to feel like you must micromanage every single moment if it's not bringing you peace or making your life better. Now, sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and simplify. Take, for example, someone working in sales. They might have big ambitions, dreaming of owning their own company one day. After a lot of hard work, they finally achieve that dream and become the boss. But here's the twist. Now that they've made it, they find they barely have time for the things they used to love, like playing golf. They start to think back to the days when they were just in sales. Back then, they made good money, and they had time to hit the golf course 3 times a week. They begin to realize that running a company is a lot more demanding than they expected. It's taking away the freedom they once had to enjoy their life. So they make a big decision. They step back from running the company and return to their old job in sales. What's the lesson here? It's important to know when life is getting too overwhelming. If the stress starts piling up, it might be time to consider stepping down to something with less pressure. I've experienced this myself. Sometimes the goals we chase after end up costing us too much. When that happens, it's worth reconsidering whether a simpler path might bring more happiness and fulfillment. Now, here's another important idea. Think of any project you're working on as a race. At the start, you're the one leading the race. You're in control, making decisions and steering the direction. But as time goes on, especially after a year or more, the project can start to take on a life of its own. The balance shifts, and suddenly it feels like the project is leading you instead of the other way around. I've seen this happen in my own life. When I started certain companies, I was in charge. I had everything under control. But after a couple of years, I found myself struggling to keep up. What began as me managing the project turned into the project managing me. I was running in circles, trying to keep everything from spinning out of control. So here's something crucial to remember. You have to take charge of your life. Make a firm decision to be the one in control. Say to yourself, I'm going to be responsible for my health. I'm going to manage my time wisely. When you take control, you set the course for how your life unfolds. It's my job to take care of my health. Society doesn't require it, but I do. You see, it's crucial to understand that taking care of your health and the well-being of your loved ones is your personal responsibility. Society isn't going to step in and make sure you stay healthy or secure your financial future. That's on you. You have to set your own standards, and you have to set them high. So make a commitment to self-improvement by taking control of your life. That means taking charge of your health, your finances, and all the responsibilities that come with living a good life. Society won't tell you to build a strong financial wall around your family, but you should demand that from yourself. It's up to you to make sure nothing can break through that wall. Now let's talk about another key to time management. That is working longer and harder. It's a common belief that the more hours you put in, the more success you'll achieve. But here's the thing. There's a limit to how much you can push yourself. And I learned that lesson the hard way. In my early years of chasing personal development and success, I became so focused on achieving my goals that I nearly sacrificed my health. I was working relentlessly day in and day out, obsessed with the idea of success. But by the end of that first year, I was nothing more than a shadow of myself. That was a wake-up call. I realized the irony of it all. I was on the path to becoming wealthy, but I was too sick to enjoy it. That realization forced me to change my approach. I had to find a better balance between work and health. I used to think that if working 12 hours a day wasn't enough, I should push myself to work 14 or even 18 hours. But I quickly discovered that this mindset came with a heavy price. While it's true that in some situations, working longer might help you get more done, you have to acknowledge your limits. Your body and mind can only handle so much. Sure, if you've got plenty of time and not much to show for it, putting in extra hours might make sense. But remember, the real key isn't necessarily working harder. It's working smarter. It's about making the most of your time, maximizing your efficiency, and achieving the best possible results within a reasonable time frame. And here's another important point in time management. Giving yourself a reasonable amount of time is actually enough to achieve your goals. I had to learn this myself. You see, reasonable time is all you need, and here's why. When you allow yourself a reasonable amount of time to work toward your goals, you're not just giving yourself a chance to succeed, you're also giving yourself the space to do it in a way that doesn't burn you out. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where you're productive, but you're also living a life you can enjoy. That's the lesson I learned, and it's one worth remembering. It's not about how many hours you put in, it's about what you put into those hours. You see, it's the quality of the ideas, the energy, and the focus you bring to the time you have that really makes a difference. If you make it a habit to fill your time with meaningful effort and good ideas, and you do this consistently, you'll be amazed at how much more productive you become over time. The key here is to think beyond the present moment. Don't just focus on what needs to be done right now. Think about how the work you're doing today will benefit you in the future. When you invest your time and energy into quality actions, your productivity doesn't just add up, it multiplies. It's like planting seeds that will grow into something much bigger later on. Your efforts today can multiply your productivity twofold, threefold, even fivefold in the future. Now, here's another important point. Regularly review your goals. Take some time to look over what you're aiming for and make sure your goals still inspire and excite you. You want to stay motivated, and one of the best ways to do that is by keeping your goals fresh and relevant. When someone asks you why you're up so early, you should be able to tell them with confidence. You might say, if you were meeting the person I'm about to meet, you'd be up early too. Or if you were heading where I'm heading, you'd be up early as well. It's all about setting yourself up for success and being ready to take on whatever challenges or opportunities come your way. Now let's talk about a crucial skill in time management, the ability to distinguish between what's major and what's minor. When you pick up the phone, ask yourself, is this conversation about something major or something minor? If it's a minor issue, keep the conversation short and sweet. But if it's something major, you might want to take some notes and really focus on what's being discussed. And here's another tip. Before you have an important conversation, take a moment to create an agenda. It's easy to just start talking off the top of your head, but that can lead to confusion and inefficiency. Having a clear agenda helps you stay on track and make sure you cover all the important points. It's a simple step, but it can make a big difference in how effective your conversations are. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person couldn't remember what they wanted to talk about? It's awkward, isn't it? It makes them look unprepared and unsure of themselves. Now imagine if that person was you. That's why it's so important to create an agenda before any important call. When you take the time to outline the topics you need to cover, you're setting yourself up for success. You'll have a clear path to follow. And it's especially helpful later on when you need to recall what was discussed. Let me give you an example. Let's say you call Peter from the sales department, and during the conversation, you discuss 4 specific topics. Later on, if Peter claims that you didn't talk about those things, you can refer back to your agenda to remind him. It's like having a roadmap of the conversation. This way you have evidence of what was discussed, which can be crucial, especially when dealing with salespeople who might try to convince you otherwise. The bottom line is, if you don't have some form of documentation, important details can easily slip through the cracks. So always make an agenda before you make that call. It ensures clarity, keeps you organized, and boosts your productivity. Now, here's the key. Don't major in minor things. If you spend too much time on the little stuff, you'll find yourself constantly trying to catch up. And that's no way to run a successful business or life. In sales training, they teach us about the difference between major and minor tasks. Minor tasks are things like thinking about potential customers, making lists of them, keeping records, visiting them, and evaluating how things went after a visit. Sure, these tasks seem important, but in reality, they're minor because they don't involve actually interacting with the customer. So what's major time? Major time is when you're in the presence of the prospect. That's when you're face-to-face with the customer. And that's the most important time for any salesperson. It's where the magic happens. If you look at your week as a salesperson, you might realize that you're spending most of your time on minor tasks and very little time actually interacting with customers. It's crucial to evaluate how much time you're spending in the presence of customers each day or week. That's the time that really counts, the time that has the most significant impact on your success in sales. Remember, the more time you spend in major time, the more successful you'll be. It's all about focusing on what truly matters and not getting bogged down by the minor things that don't move the needle. Now, here's a crucial aspect of time management: knowing when to say no. In today's world, being social and agreeable is often seen as a good thing. It's easy to fall into the habit of saying yes to everything that comes your way. But let me tell you, saying yes too often can leave you feeling buried under a mountain of responsibilities. Have you ever been in a situation where you quickly agreed to something only to realize later that you're overloaded with tasks? Then you find yourself spending even more time trying to back out of commitments you shouldn't have made in the first place. It's a real hassle, isn't it? Instead of jumping in with a quick yes, try something different. When someone asks you to take on something new, consider saying, "I don't think I can do that right now, but if anything changes, I'll let you know." This approach buys you time. You're not committing yourself right away, and you give yourself the space to think about whether you can realistically handle the task. A good friend of mine once said, "Don't let your mouth overload your back." That's a powerful reminder to be mindful of how much you agree to take on. If you're not careful, you might end up burdening yourself with more than you can handle. And that's a recipe for stress and burnout. Now, here's the next one: concentration. I learned this lesson years ago through a memorable experience. I was in the shower trying to compose a letter in my head. But guess what? The letter turned out strange because my mind was all over the place. I wasn't focused. So here's what I learned. Save your work for when you're actually at your desk. Don't try to tackle work tasks when you're on your way to work or doing something else. Instead, focus on enjoying the moment. If you're in the shower, fully immerse yourself in that experience. Don't split your attention. Then when you get to the office, you'll find that you can concentrate much better. Why? Because you're not trying to multitask. You're not spreading your focus too thin. When you're at work, give your full attention to the task at hand. Practicing concentration like this is incredibly helpful. It allows you to be more productive, more efficient, and ultimately it leads to better results. Remember, the power of concentration is one of the greatest tools you have in your time management arsenal. Use it wisely, and you'll see a remarkable difference in how much you can accomplish. Here's the next principle. When you play, play. When you work, work. Don't mix the two. There was a time when I thought I could balance both at once. I used to take my family to the beach, but I'd bring my briefcase along thinking I could squeeze in some work while we were there. But it didn't take long for me to realize this wasn't a good idea. Instead of enjoying precious time with my family, my mind was stuck on work. I was physically at the beach, but mentally I was back at the office. And let me tell you, my family could tell. They saw I wasn't fully present, and it took the joy out of what should have been a relaxing time together. The same thing happened when I was at the office. I'd catch myself daydreaming about being at the beach, playing with my kids, or just soaking up the sun. And because of that, my productivity took a hit. I wasn't fully focused on my work, and it showed in the results. So I had to make a change. I learned to be fully present in each moment. When I'm at the beach, I'm really at the beach. I focus on enjoying the time with my family, leaving work behind. And when I'm at the office, I dive into my work, giving it my full attention without letting thoughts of leisure distract me. By separating work and play and dedicating specific time and attention to each, I've found that I'm more productive at work and I enjoy my leisure time much more fully. So remember, when you work, work. When you play, play. Don't mix the two. Now, here's another important tip. Don't play at work. Work is serious business. You don't want to be known as the office clown. That's not the kind of reputation you want. Sure, there's a time for a few funny stories and some laughter. It's great to have a positive, happy atmosphere at work. But always keep in mind that work is serious business. When you're working, you're giving up a part of your life, time that you'll never get back. This doesn't mean you have to be grim or unhappy at work, but it does mean you need to take your work seriously. Making jokes and playing tricks might be fun in other places, but the workplace isn't the right setting for that kind of behavior. When you're on the job, focus on doing your best. It's about respecting the time and effort you put into your work and the goals you're working to achieve. You can enjoy yourself at the beach, at a bar, or in other casual settings where it's appropriate to relax and have fun. But when you're at work, it's time to get serious. Work demands a sense of responsibility and dedication because it's what's shaping your future. Goofing off during work hours might feel good in the moment, but it's not going to get you where you want to be. Instead, treat your work with the seriousness it deserves. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for success and making the most of the opportunities that come your way. Here's another important thing to keep in mind. Every job has value. Even if you don't love your current job, if it's helping you move closer to your goals, you should still appreciate it. You don't have to be passionate about every task you do, but you should have a deep desire for success in all aspects of your life. That's the real passion you should strive for. Never underestimate the importance of any job, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. Every job you take on plays a part in your journey toward where you want to be. There's no such thing as a menial job. Every job has dignity, and every job contributes to your growth. When you work, you're not just trading your time for money. You're also gaining experience, building character, and making a contribution to society. So instead of looking down on any job, recognize the value it holds in shaping your future and appreciate the opportunity it provides for growth and development. Now, here's the next key to managing your time. Don't mistake movement for achievement. It's easy to feel like you've accomplished a lot just because you've been busy all day. But here's the important question. Busy doing what? Simply staying busy isn't enough. You might come home exhausted, thinking you've worked hard because you were busy all day. But if you look closely, were you busy with meaningful tasks that moved you closer to your goals? Or were you just running around in circles, staying occupied without making real progress? It's essential not to confuse busyness with achievement. Instead of focusing on just staying busy, focus on accomplishing tasks that genuinely move you forward. By doing this, you'll ensure that your efforts are leading to real progress, not just keeping you occupied. Remember, true achievement comes from meaningful action, not just motion. Let's dive into another important aspect of time management. Being mindful of the telephone and other communication devices, especially when you're at home. These tools are incredibly useful, but they can easily disrupt your personal time if you're not careful. This is especially true during weekends or family dinners when you should be focused on relaxing and enjoying the company of your loved ones. Here's a practical tip for the weekend. Let your communication devices serve you, but don't let them control your time. When it's time to sit down for dinner with your family, make it a point to turn off your phone or any other device that could interrupt. If the device has a feature that allows it to take messages silently, use it. The key is to prevent these interruptions from breaking the peace and connection of your family time. It's crucial to create boundaries during family moments, ensuring that nothing from the outside world intrudes on that sacred time. Whether it's a phone call, a knock at the door, or a message alert, these interruptions should be kept at bay. This is a rule that applies to everyone in the household, including parents. So be intentional about protecting your personal time. It's essential to have a space and time that's respected and free from external distractions, even if it's just for a short while. This helps you truly enjoy and focus on what's most important, your family. Now, on to the next tip. Read as many books on time management as you can. While I'm sharing just a few notes here, there are plenty of books out there that dive deep into the specifics, especially if you're managing a large organization or corporation. The more you learn, the better equipped you'll be to handle the challenges that come with managing your time effectively. Next, be vigilant about anything that might be stealing your time. Just like you wouldn't let someone take your money or investment, you shouldn't allow anyone to steal your time. Time is precious, and it's something you need to guard just as carefully as your finances. Be deliberate in how you allocate your time, and recognize that some moments are too important to be interrupted. It's fine to allow interruptions during less critical times or casual moments, but when you're focused on serious tasks or have set aside time for important activities, you need to protect that time fiercely. Don't let anyone steal those moments away from you. Here's another key point in time management. Learn to ask the right questions from the start. Sometimes we spend a lot of time talking around an issue only to realize later that we could have gotten to the heart of the matter much faster if we'd asked the right questions up front. This simple habit can save you a tremendous amount of time and help you address the core issue more efficiently. For example, imagine spending an hour in conversation with Peter, only to find out later that the real problem was something personal that he wasn't comfortable discussing. If you had asked more focused questions at the beginning, you might have quickly uncovered the main issue and addressed it right away. You see, when you jump into a conversation without asking the right questions up front, you might end up wasting precious time. Instead, make it a habit to start by asking questions. This helps you get straight to the heart of the matter, so you're not sidetracked by things that don't really matter. By doing this, you'll focus on the core issues right from the start and avoid spinning your wheels on irrelevant topics. Now let's talk about self-assessment. Take a good, honest look at yourself. Identify where you might be falling short. If you find you've got some weaknesses that just aren't going away, don't get discouraged. Instead, find a way to work around them. In my early business days, I kept telling myself I'll handle the bookkeeping for my business, but guess what? I never seemed to get around to it. Eventually, I realized this wasn't something I was good at, and it was eating up a lot of my time and energy. So instead of forcing myself to do something that didn't play to my strengths, I hired an accountant. Yes, it cost me an extra $40 or $50 a month, but the time and productivity I gained back, priceless. The lesson here is simple. Accept yourself, weaknesses and all. But if you struggle in certain areas, don't hesitate to find a solution that covers for them. It might cost you a little extra in money or effort, but in the grand scheme of things, it can save you a lot of time and stress. Now, here's the ultimate time management strategy. Get better at what you do. When I first started in sales, I was surrounded by people closing 9 out of 10 deals while I was barely getting 1 out of 10. So what did I do? I worked my tail off, reaching out to as many people as possible. At that stage, it wasn't about quality, it was all about quantity. As I put in the work and gained experience, my success rate improved. I didn't have to grind as hard because I got better at persuading and influencing others. This allowed me to be more selective with my efforts. But remember, to get to that point, you've got to be willing to put in the hard work and dedication, especially in the beginning. Once you've honed your skills and become more proficient, managing your time becomes a whole lot easier because you're able to achieve more with less effort.